Yo fellow customizers, today I'm bringing you a full review of my Z Fighter archetype. As a kid I was always a fan of Dragon Ball, and today I'm here to the Z Fighter archetype off with our favorite bald guy, Z Fighter Krillin. He's kind of the glue of the team while being not very strong. He's a level 2 warrior with 1000 attack, not that big, but you can tribute him to special summon a level 3 or higher Z Fighter monster from your deck. With the limitation that you can only summon Z Fighter monsters that turn, keeping it in archetype. And then if you activate a Dragon Ball spell, which we'll also look at later on as you can see, you can banish him from the graveyard to add another Dragon Ball spell from your deck to your hand. So a very important consistency piece for the deck, but not per se a 3-off because of the next card. The next card, like I said, the best boobs in the business. Z support Boobma or Bulma, I mean. You can send her from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard to fetch another Z Fighter monster or a Dragon Ball spell card. So all of the monsters have a way to interact with Dragon Ball spells. Sometimes not in the main deck, sometimes in the extra deck, but we will come to that. And then if you special summon an XYZ monster from the extra deck, you can attach her from the graveyard to it as a material. So yet again, a very important support card to build up upon. Next, we go to Gohan, my personal favorite character in the show. If you control another Z Fighter monster, you can special summon him from your hand. Then you get to draw a card, and if your opponent wants, they can also draw a card. Now the following monsters are Saiyans who can evolve is not the right word, power up, transform into different forms, and they all have different ways of doing that. For Gohan, it happens when a card is added to your opponent's hand except during the draw phase. So if your opponent chooses to draw a card with Gohan's effect, you get to trigger the second effect and float into his Super Saiyan form. So let's go and check that one out before we move on. You also get to attach this card to it as a material. So the Super Saiyan form of Gohan, you can also summon it with 2 level 3 Z Fighter monsters, but you'll probably float into it with a regular Gohan. If it's special summoned, you get to attach a Dragon Ball from your deck to it as a material, and then your opponent can add a spell trap from their graveyard to their hand. Yet again, if your opponent chooses to do that and add a spell or trap from their graveyard to their hand, you get to trigger Super Saiyan Gohan's secondary effect, allowing you to special summon his second form and then attaching this card and its materials to that card. So for his final form, the Super Saiyan 2 form, on summon allows you to add one card that is attached to him to your hand. So possibly the Dragon Ball you attached with Super Saiyan 1. And then also you can detach any number of materials from this card to return cards your opponent controls up to the number of materials detached. So a big bounce effect if you get a bunch of materials underneath him. And that is a quick effect if you have the original Gohan still as a material when you activate the effect. Let's move on to the main character, Z Fighter Goku. As the main character, when you normal or special summon him, he allows you to add one Dragon Ball spell card from your deck to your hand. Like I said, we'll go over them later on. All very powerful spell cards. And then Goku, when he is destroyed by battle or a card effect, you get to special summon his Super Saiyan form from the extra deck, then attach him from the graveyard to it as a material. Because Goku, every time he is defeated, comes back stronger. His Super Saiyan version, that version can attack twice during each battle phase if it has the original Goku as a material. And then when this guy is destroyed by battle or card effect, he comes back even stronger as Super Saiyan 2. And then you get to attach cards from your graveyard to Super Saiyan 2 equal to the number of cards this card had as a material. Let's check out this Super Saiyan 2 version. Yet again, if it has Goku as a material, it can attack twice. Also, this version inflicts piercing battle damage. Then, when it's special summoned, you can change one other face-up monster on the field to face-down defense position. And when it's destroyed, it yet again floats into the next version of Goku and has the same way of attaching materials from grave up to the number of materials it had on the field. Super Saiyan 3. Yet again, the effect that if it has Goku as a material, it can attack all monsters each now and inflicts piercing battle damage. So as you can see, that's building up, first attacking twice with piercing, attacking all monsters with piercing. If Super Saiyan 3 is special summoned, you can change all monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position. So it's no longer limited to one monster, but all of their monsters. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon one Goku from your extra deck that is 4 ranks higher than this card. And then we have the same attached from grave effect attached to that. Now, why does it say 4 ranks or higher? Because here you can make a choice. Either you go the Dragonball GT route and you choose to float into Z Fighter Goku Super Saiyan 4, which is a rank 8. On special summon, you get to attach a set card your opponent controls or a card from the graveyard to discard as a material. So you get to pick either a card you flip face down or something from their grave. Then the other effect is you can detach a material to target and banish a face-up card your opponent controls. And if this card has the original Goku as a material, this effect is a quick effect. The other route you can go is say, Dragon Ball GT, that's not real, that's just an alternate universe. We live in the Dragon Ball Super universe. Well, then you go for Z Fighter Goku Super Saiyan Red. Another rank 8. If this card has Z Fighter Goku as a material, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls each and inflicts piercing battle damage, so more of a follow-up on Super Saiyan 3. If this card is special summoned, you can destroy all spell trap cards your opponent controls. So instead of focusing on monsters, this one focuses on spell and trap cards. And then if this guy is destroyed by battle or card effect, yet again Goku always comes back stronger. He floats into Super Saiyan Blue. Super Saiyan Blue, the final form of Goku, gains effects based on the number of materials it has. So you want to accumulate as many materials as possible. But during your end phase, you have to detach a material from this card. If it has more than one material, you can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, the regular piercing battle damage effect. 2 materials, this card cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. 4 or more materials, any monster your opponent special summoned is changed to face down defense position. And then 6 or more materials during your draw phase. For your normal draw, you get to draw 2 cards instead of 1. So a very strong, kind of floodgate-like boss monster that is hard to deal with. Next, let's check out his adversary. Vegeta has a kind of Cyber Dragon-like effect. If you control no monsters, you can special summon him from the hand. And then if you can destroy one of your opponent's monsters. So if he destroys an opponent's monster by battle or card effect, he will summon his Super Saiyan 1 version. Regular Super Saiyan form of Vegeta has this effect. You can detach a material, target another face-up card on the field and destroy it. And then yet again he has the same floating ability as the regular Vegeta. So if he destroys a monster by battle or card effect, you get to summon his next form, Super Saiyan 2, then attach this card and its materials to that monster. Yet another card with a small removal effect. You can detach a material, target another card on the field, destroy it. Then if this card has Z Fighter Vegeta as a material, you can add a Dragon Ball spell card from your deck to your hand. So you want them to have at least 2 materials so you can keep the regular Vegeta and also get a Surge. And then yet again, if he destroys a monster by battle or card effect, you can special summon his next version. Super Saiyan 3 yet again has a small removal effect. Attach a material from this card, destroy a monster your opponent controls. Then you can banish cards from your opponent's graveyard up to that monster's level/rank. So The bigger monster you get rid of, the more cards you can banish from your opponent's graveyard. Yet again, same way to summon the next version, and similar to Super Saiyan Goku 3, instead of having one specific monster we get to pick. In this case it is 3 ranks higher than this card, and then yet again we get to attach this guy and all of its materials to that monster. If you go the Dragon Ball GT route, we get Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. On special summon, allows you to target one card in either graveyard and attach it to itself as a material. And then you can detach one material from this card to destroy one card your opponent controls, so non-targeting destruction removal. And if he still has the original Vegeta as a material, that is a quick effect. If you prefer Dragon Ball Super, well, then you'll probably choose for Vegeta Super Saiyan Red, which on special summon lets you draw a card for each card that was destroyed by a card effect this turn. So if you manage to go from regular Vegeta into Red, and using that effect each time, you will get to draw 4 cards with Red, which is a pretty busted effect. But that does mean you have to do it all in the same turn, and your opponent cannot interrupt any of those effects, of course, right? Its second effect, if it still has the regular Vegeta as a material, you can detach one material from this card and destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of cards in your hand. So the more cards you have drawn, the more you will be able to destroy with this effect. And then, when he destroys a monster by battle or a card effect, you can special summon his last version, Super Saiyan Blue. Yet again, attach this card and materials to it. We have Vegeta Super Saiyan Blue, as I just said. Similar to the Goku, he gains effects based on the number of materials, and you have to detach one during the end phase. So if he has one or more, if this card destroys a monster by battle, you can destroy all other cards your opponent controls, but other monsters you control cannot attack directly this turn. If you have 2 or more, he cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, just like Goku. 4 or more, any card sent to your opponent's graveyard is banished instead. Everybody loves a great macrocosmos. And then 6 or more double discards original attack. Also, it deals double battle damage. Before we move on to the spell cards, there's one more main deck monster that I would like to discuss, and that is Z Fighter Piccolo. Another one of my personal favorite characters, even though not a Saiyan. I always like this asshole a lot. His secondary effect allows you to banish him and another Z Fighter from your graveyard to search for a Dragon Ball spell card. So as I said, they all have ways to get to a Dragon Ball. So let's check out these Dragon Balls. Dragon Ball 1 has a very simple effect. It just allows you to search another Dragon Ball. But then if you have exactly one Z Fighter and no other monsters on the field, you can draw one card. So it's all about timing when to use your balls. Dragon Ball 2 is kind of like a destiny draw, so you get to send a Z Fighter from your hand or face up field to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. And then if you have exactly 2 Dragon Ball spell cards in your graveyard, you get to send a Z Fighter from your deck to the graveyard. The third Dragon Ball can only be activated if you control a Z Fighter. Allows you to add a trap card from your deck to your hand that lists a Z Fighter monster in its card text. Then if you have exactly 3 Dragon Ball cards in your graveyard, you get to draw a card. Dragon Ball 4 has the next effect. Allows you to target a Z Fighter monster in your graveyard and return it to your deck or extra deck. Then special summon a Z Fighter monster from your deck or extra deck with the same name. So originally the idea was to make it a monster reborn effect, but since the XYZs most of the time get cheated out, not properly summoned, I made it a way stronger card, and it is now a recycler plus a summon from deck. But hey, you know. To make it even better, if you summon an XZ monster with this card, you also get to attach up to 4 cards from your graveyard to it as a material. Dragon Ball 5. Yet again another one where you need to have a Z Fighter on the field to activate it. You get to excavate 5, add one of them to your hand, return the rest to the bottom of the deck in any order. Then if your opponent controls exactly 5 cards, you can add the bottom card of your deck to your hand. So not very consistent, but possibly a +1. Then we have Dragonball Z. Yet again another one where you need a Z fighter on the field. Allows you to target up to one card on each player's side of the field. So you could target one only on your side, only on your opponent's side, or one on each. Then destroy the targets. And then if there are at least 6 cards in both players' graveyard, you can add 1 card from your graveyard to your hand. And then our final Dragon Ball 7, needs you to reveal 1 Z fighter monster in your hand. Then you can target a Dragon Ball spell card in your graveyard except 7. And this card effect becomes that target's effect. So you get to use another Dragon Ball's effect again. If you already have 7 or more Z fighter monsters in your graveyard, you do not need to reveal a Z fighter in your hand. So those were all the Dragon Balls, but there is one more Dragon Ball spell card, and that is Dragon Ball Wish. Dragon Ball Wish is the spell card we of course need to summon the dragon. So it allows us to shuffle 7 Dragon Ball spell cards with different names from the grave into the deck to special summon 1 Z dragon monster from the extra deck, and it is unaffected by other card effects this turn. First of all, we have the long slender snake called Shenron. If you special summon Shenron, you can choose to activate one of these effects, but the cards cannot attack that turn. So you can either special summon as many Z fighter monsters as possible from your graveyard with different names, kinda like in the show where they bring everybody back with Shenron. You can also choose to banish all cards your opponent controls, or you can draw 3 cards. And then during the end phase you have to return this card to the extra deck. If you are on another planet, you might not wish upon Shenron, but you might wish upon Porunga. If Porunga is special summoned, you yet again get to choose between 3 effects. This time you can special summon as many as possible Z fighter monsters from your deck with different levels, not name but levels. You can banish all cards in your opponent's graveyard, or you can have your opponent's life points and then gain life points equal to the amount your opponent lost. Stipulation as Shenron cannot attack the turn you use its effect, and you have to return it to the extra deck during the end phase. There are a few more trap cards we have to go over. So let's start with the first one, which is kinda memey, but that's exactly why I made it. It's over 9,000. This trap card allows you to target a Z fighter XYZ monster. Its attack becomes 10,000 until the end of the next turn. Also, any battle damage it inflicts is halved. Then if your life points are 9,000 or more, you can banish this card from the graveyard to draw 2 cards. So next trap card is Super Saiyan Transformation. Allows you to target a Z fighter monster you control and special summon 1 Z fighter monster from your deck that is listed in the target's card text. And then secondary effect, you can target a Z fighter monster you control, banish this card from the graveyard, your life points become the target's current attack. So if you can combine transformation with its over 9,000, you will get a guy with 10,000 attack, 10,000 life points, and get to draw 2 cards. Then we have the Flying Nimbus. Flying Nimbus allows you to special summon a Z fighter from your hand or graveyard that has a level. And if you do, all monsters you currently control become that monster's level. And then as a secondary effect, you can banish the Flying Nimbus from the graveyard to XYZ summon a Z fighter XYZ monster using monsters you control as material. Then for the final card of the first wave, we have Kamehameha. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a Z fighter XYZ monster, you can make that XYZ monster use the Kamehameha to negate the activation and then destroy all cards in this card's column. And then as a secondary effect in the graveyard, if an opponent's monster declares an attack on a Z fighter monster, you can banish this card from the grave to destroy the attacking monster. So a Kamehameha-like protection effect that fits, you know, since they use beams to block other beams. For wave 2, Fidel cannot be destroyed by battle if you control a level 3 or higher Z fighter monster. Then when your opponent activates a monster effect and you control no monsters or only Z-Fighter monsters, you can discard this card and a Dragon Ball spell to negate the activation and then return that monster to the hand. And then if you control Gohan, you can special summon her from the graveyard. But speaking of Gohan, which we checked out in the first wave, I did make another extra deck monster for him, being Saiyaman number 1. It also has another summoning condition. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can also XYZ summon this card by using one Z-Fighter Gohan monster you control as material and then transfer its materials to this card. Then when your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy or tribute a card on the field, you can detach a material from this card, negate that effect, and if it is a monster, return it to the hand. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, he floats into the regular Gohan from the graveyard. Saiyaman number 2 can, same as number 1, be special summoned if your opponent controls more monsters, but then by using Videl as the material. Otherwise, it needs 3 level 2 monsters. Your other Saiyaman monsters get a 500 attack and defense boost, and then during the main phase, she allows you to target a Z-Fighter monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And then when she leaves the field, you get to float into Videl from the graveyard. The final Saiyaman is Saiyaman number 3. Has same summoning conditions. Once per turn, if your opponent controls more monsters, you can use Goten as a material or 2 level 2 Z-Fighter monsters. And then when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control or in your graveyard, you can detach material from this card, negate that effect, and if it was a monster, return it to the hand. And then if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to float into Goten from the graveyard. So let's check out the youngest son of Goku. Z-Fighter Goten, not Goku. If you normal summon a Z-Fighter monster, you get to special summon Goten from your hand. Then if he's normal or special summoned, you can add one Metamoran fusion or one Dragon Ball Wish from your deck to your hand. And then if a card you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you get to float into his Super Saiyan form and then attach this card to it as a material. A regular Goten on special summon allows you to target another Z-Fighter monster you control and move it to another of your main monster zones. Secondary effect allows you to target a card you control. Then if this card has Z-Fighter Goten as a material, you can also target the card your opponent controls, detach a material from this card, and then destroy the target or targets. This triggers Goten's third effect. If a card is destroyed and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon a Z-Fighter Goten Super Saiyan 2 and attach this card and its materials to it. He gets a boost of 600 attack if you control a Trunks monster. Special summon allows you to target the card in graveyard and attach it to this card as a material. And then his final effect allows you to target a card on the field, detach a material and send the target to the graveyard. If he has original Goten as a material, that is a quick effect. This version of Goten gains 600 attack when there's a Trunks monster on the field. So let's check out Trunks. The level 3 warrior. If a Z-Fighter monster is sent to the graveyard except Trunks, you can special summon this card from the hand, and then if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Goten from deck or graveyard to your hand. Then if your opponent sends a card from their hand or deck to the graveyard, you get to float from Trunks into his Super Saiyan form and attach him as a material. So let's check out his Super Saiyan forms. Super Saiyan Trunks gains 600 attack if you control Goten. Special summon allows you to special summon a Z-Fighter monster from your hand except Trunks. And then yet again, if a card is sent to either graveyard from the hand or field, you get to special summon his Super Saiyan 2 version and attach this card. We have his Super Saiyan 2 version, which instead of gaining attack deals piercing battle damage if you control Goten or a Goten monster. On special summon, like Goten Super Saiyan 2 allows you to attach one card from either graveyard to him as material. And then during the main phase you can detach two materials to fusion summon a Z fighter using monsters you control in adjacent main monster zones as materials. That fusion effect is a quick effect if he has the original Trunks as a material on activation. We both know Trunks doesn't show up once, but he shows up twice in the show, because before we get Little Trunks, we get Future Trunks. He also synergizes with regular Trunks in this deck, because this card allows you to discard himself to send a Z Fighter monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then during your next standby phase you get to special summon this card from the graveyard. And that also would trigger the regular Trunks. If you would have him in your hand, you get to special summon him because a Z Fighter was sent to the graveyard. Then the secondary effect of Future Trunks allows you to float into his Super Saiyan form and attach him as it to a material when your opponent special summons a monster. So let's check out his Super Saiyan form. On summon allows you to target another special summoned monster and banish it until the end phase. Then if this card has Z Fighter Future Trunks as a material, it inflicts piercing battle damage. And then if your opponent special summons a monster, this guy gets to float in the Super Saiyan 2 version, and then you can attach this card and any materials to that guy. So let's check out that Super Saiyan 2 version. If he special summoned and you have original Trunks as material, you can declare one monster type, banish all monsters of that type until the end of the turn, and if you do, you can attach one opponent's banished cards to Future Trunks as a material. Then when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can detach two materials from this card to banish that monster. And then if this card has Super Saiyan Trunks as a material, it can attack twice each battle phase. There has been a spell card here the entire time, so let's check it out. It is Metamoran Fusion, so you can search that card with Goten. Allows you to fusion summon a Z Fighter fusion monsters using monsters from your field as the fusion materials. If any monsters used from your field were in adjacent main monster zones, your opponent cannot target that fusion monster with card effects. Fusion monster is returned from the field to the extra deck. You can set this card from the graveyard and it can be activated this turn. So let's check out these fusion monsters. First of all, we have Gotenks. If he needs a Goten monster and a Trunks monster. On fusion summon, allows you to target a Dragon Ball in your graveyard and add it to your hand. And then if a card is sent to either graveyard from the hand or field, kinda like the regular Super Saiyan Trunks effect, you get to float into Super Saiyan Gotenks from your extra deck and then attach this card to it. If that doesn't happen during the end phase, you have to return this guy to the extra deck and then you get to summon a Goten and one Trunks from your hand. His Super Saiyan version, if you don't float into it, you need two level 5 fusion monsters to summon it. And if it's special summon, allows you to target a card in either graveyard and attach it to itself as a material. So then during the main phase, you can target a card in your graveyard and a face-up card on the field, detach a material to return both to the hand. This is a quick effect if this card has Goten or Trunks as material. And then he also gains 300 attack for each material attached to this card. Doesn't list anything to float in, but there is another version of Gotenks Super Saiyan 3. Either needs 3 level 7 fusion monsters, or during your main phase 2, you can XYZ summon this card by using one Z Fighter Gotenks monster you control. Transfer its materials. During the main phase, you can add one card attached to this card to your hand. Then if it's a monster, you get to special summon it. Then as a quick effect, you can target a card in either graveyard, detach one material from this card, attach the target to this card as a material. Then if you have Trunks or Goten as a material, you can destroy one card your opponent controls. And if this card is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can add a level 3 or lower Z Fighter monster from your deck to your hands. Now you would think we are finished, but that is not true, because there are two monsters in wave 1, Goku and Vegeta, who also have fusions. So I also made those fusions. Our first Goku Vegeta fusion needs a Goku and a Vegeta monster. Duh. Its fusion summoned allows you to discard the card to destroy one card your opponent controls. This card is destroyed by battle or a card effect, or if it destroys a monster by battle, you get to summon his Super Saiyan form from the extra deck, then attach this card from either field or graveyard to it as a material. If that did not happen, well then during the end phase you have to return this guy to the extra deck and then special summon one Goku and one Vegeta from your hand and or graveyard. Super Saiyan Gogeta. On special summon allows you to target a Dragon Ball spell card in either graveyard, and this effect becomes that card's activated effect, then you have to banish that card from the grave. If this card destroys a monster by battle, you can detach a material from this card to destroy one card your opponent controls. Then, if the detached material was a level 4 or higher Z Fighter monster, this card can make a second attack during this battle phase. If this card is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you get to float into the next version, which is Super Saiyan Blue. So let's check out Gogeta Super Saiyan Blue. You can also XYZ summon this. No, I'm wrong. Gogeta does not float into the blue. He floats into a Goku and a Vegeta from your graveyard. I was wrong, even though I made the cards myself. Well, let's just keep that in, that never happened. So that's why Gogeta Super Saiyan Blue has a special summoning condition that during main phase 2 you can also XYZ summon him by using the regular Super Saiyan Gogeta as a material. If this card is special summoned, you can target up to 7 Dragon Ball spells in your graveyard or that are banished, shuffle them into the deck, and then you get to special summon one Z Dragon monster from your extra deck. It's treated as being summoned with Dragon Ball Wish. Not Witch. Wish. There's no Dragon Ball Witch. Maybe there is. I'm not sure. If you did not return 7 cards to your extra deck with this effect, that monster's effects are negated. So you need to return 7 to be able to do a wish, but this guy does allow you to cheat out one of the big dragons. If your opponent activates a card or effect and you control a fusion monster, you can detach a material to negate that effect. Then if it was a monster, you get to return it to the hand. There was the other fusion of Goku and Vegeta, known as Yugioh. This one yet again needs a Goku and a Vegeta monster, but one of the two needs to be an XYZ monster. On fusion summon, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of Dragon Ball spells with different names in your grave and destroy them. If you do, this card cannot attack directly this turn. And then when a card or effect is activated in the graveyard, you can negate that effect. If your opponent manages to deal with this card, or he destroys a monster by battle, you get to float into his Super Saiyan Vegito. On special summon, allows you to set one trap card that lists a Z Fighter monster in its text from your deck. If the effect is activated in the graveyard, you can negate that effect and then attach this card, attach that card to this card, not this card to this card. Oh, the end of this video is getting so fucking rubbish, but whatever. Probably nobody's hearing this part anyway, so if you heard this part, let me know how rubbish it was. Also get to detach 2 materials from this card, target the card your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you do, you can destroy one more card on the field if this card has a fusion monster as a material. Then let's check out the final card and the final version of Vegito Blue. Like Gogeta Blue, he will during the main phase 2 be special summoned by using his Super Saiyan form as the material. Special summon allows you to fusion summon a Z Fighter fusion monster by banishing the listed fusion materials from your hand or graveyard, but this card cannot attack directly this turn. So it's similar to the other blue, which can cheat out a dragon. This guy can cheat out one of your Z Fighter fusion monsters. Card or effect is activated while you control a fusion monster. Quick effect, you can target up to one card on the field and up to one card in either graveyard. Then detach a material and attach those cards to this card. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you get to grab a level 4 or level 5 Z Fighter monster from your deck to your hand. So it's either a Goku or a Vegeta. That concludes the Z Fighter archetype. If you don't like me rambling about this entire archetype in one time, I suggest you just check out my shorts. But if you did like my rambling about this Dragon Ball archetype, I would much appreciate you like and subscribe, so I know that people appreciate my longer content, and I'm freaking motivated to keep doing it. Thanks for listening to me ramble and watch my slideshow of fancy colored pictures with a lot of words.